Krentenbollen are golden brown buns with a slightly rustic look. The egg wash adds a nice sheen on the outside, and when you break them open, you will see the fluffy dough with specks of the currants. These are great to be served at breakfast or at tea time. Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. Whenever I bake krentenbollen, I am always transported back in time, visiting my oma, my grandma, who often had krentenbollen ready whenever we came to visit. Krentenbollen consist of 3 different parts: the dough, the filling, and the finishing touches. To make the dough, you will need 410 grams of all-purpose flour, 230 grams of lukewarm milk, 45 grams of unsalted butter, room temperature, 30 grams of sugar, 1 egg, 8 grams of yeast, 8 grams of salt, and half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. For the filling, you will need 260 grams of currants and 1 tablespoon of lemon zest. To finish the krentenbollen, you will need 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of milk. Let's start the dough. I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of the 30 grams of sugar and add it to my milk. Make sure it's between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius, which is 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. After I added the sugar, I am now adding the yeast and I'm going to stir it through. Ooh, love that smell. We're going to set this to the side, and now I'm going to put the dry ingredients in my mixer. I have sifted the flour to get out any lumps, and I'm now going to add it to the bowl of my mixer. I'm also adding my cinnamon and my salt. And I'm going to use the mixer to just mix that all through with the dough hook. Sometimes you need to help the mixer a little bit by just moving things out from the side of the bowl. I love the smell of cinnamon. Okay. Going to make a little bit of a well in the center. You know, when I say dry ingredients, that also means sugar. So let me add the rest of the sugar to the flour, and I'm gonna put it on the mixer again. To err is human, right? Okay. I did this on purpose. Now that the sugar is also mixed through the flour, I'm going to make a little well in the center again. My egg. Let's see, egg, yep. Going to now add the milk, sugar, and yeast mixture. I'm just stirring it through, scraping all the yeast off the sides of the measuring cup. And we're going to start the mixer on medium-low. Silence. Okay, going to help the mixer along a little bit by scraping the dry flour from the sides and pushing them towards the center, and turn it back on. So most of the dry flour is incorporated. So I'm now going to add the softened butter to the bowl. Make sure you get all of it. And we're going to turn it back on. So scraping all the butter off the edges of the bowl. Give the mixer a chance to get it really incorporated. And turn it back on. Just make sure that if you don't see the dough ball moving around, help it out with the spatula. If you want, you can stop it. If you're careful, you can leave it going. So I'm gonna give it a little help. Okay. We're gonna let this knead for 10 minutes. It's been 10 minutes, so I'm gonna turn off the mixer now. And next, I'm going to prepare the filling. I need a tablespoon of lemon zest. So using the microplane, I'm going to zest it. Be very careful to not push too hard or go over the same spot twice. You just want the yellow. You don't want the white pith because that is bitter. It's not quite a tablespoon, so I'm going to get a second lemon and repeat. Let's see if this is a tablespoon. I think it is. Or awfully close. I'm going to call that good. Add it to the currants. So these currants, last night I put in a bowl of water for probably a good hour, and then I laid them out on a cookie sheet lined with a sour flack towel. It's a sour flack, don't you know? I meant to say I put the wet currants on a cookie sheet lined with a flour sack towel, and then also one on top to make sure that they dry a little bit more. I'm going to mix this through. Love the smell of the lemon with the currants. It's a very nice combination. Add this to my bowl. Probably easier when you lower it. If you cannot find currants or you don't like currants, you can do this with raisins as well. Can't call them krentenbollen anymore, but rozijnenbollen are just as tasty. And we're going to mix this just long enough until the currants are through the dough. Going to scrape down the dough hook as well as the bowl and give it another minute. It's mostly done. You're a little bit in charge of how filled your krentenbollen are. The weight we used is probably medium. You can go up by a little bit more if you like your krentenbollen more filled, or you can do a little less if you prefer them a little less filled. Okay. You don't have to use a mixer for this step. You can also do it on your counter. Simply roll out the dough, sprinkle over the raisins, the currants with the lemon zest, and then knead it by hand. I prefer to use the mixer. So this is pretty good. I am going to cover this up and put it in a warm spot that is draft free for 1 hour for the first rise. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, please click the like and subscribe button. It will really help our channel. And if you want YouTube to notify you whenever we post a new video, click the bell. The first rise is done, and as you can see, it has grown substantially. So I'm going to flour my work surface a little bit. And I'm going to turn or take this out of the bowl and add it to the counter. I'm going to give it a quick knead just to make sure that everything is completely evenly distributed. And it's okay to add a little bit more flour if the dough is too wet. It is a very wet dough, and it's very humid here. It's been raining all day long. You could weigh it, but I'm going to eyeball it. I'm going to cover it with a little bit of flour where I'm going to cut it. I'm going to ball this up again and try to make a little bit of an even shape. I'm going to cut this into 6 pieces. One's like that. I'm going to flour my hands a little bit. I'm going to flatten it. I'm going to take a corner or a piece, pull it over, move it into the center, and move all the way around. Keep doing that. This is going to create some tension on the top. like that. We're going to put this on the counter. When we posted the witte recipe, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below, a lot of people said, can I use this to make krentenbollen? And it's not quite the same dough. So I said, no, you can, but I will post krentenbollen recipe pretty soon. So that is why we're doing this now. Again, pull, move over to the center. Just work your way around. And let's see, this one is too big, so I'm going to take a little bit of that and add it to the small one. It's very sticky, but it's going to turn out great. I'm going to do that with the rest of the dough, and then we'll be back. I've divided the dough into 12 almost even pieces. We have a few that are smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the small, I'm going to try to put them based on size on the cookie sheet so that everything on the cookie sheet is the same size and hopefully bakes evenly. We're now going to ball them up. We're going to put the dough ball on a clean counter, and using our hand, cupping it around it, we're going to roll it. And what you'll see is that there's some tension on top of the bun. Okay, this is a small one. I'm putting them on this cookie sheet. And you don't want flour on your workspace when you do this, because you want the dough to kind of hold on to the counter as you are moving your hand around, and your fingers are pushing in, making it in a much smoother ball. So let's compare this with, for example, this one, right? So you can tell there's more tension on the dough. Now we'll go to this one. You can tell you're done shaping when the skin of the ball is nice and smooth. Of course, there will be some currants poking through, and that is perfectly fine, but you can tell that this is now nice and smooth, and I can put it there. All right. Beautiful. So here are 6. I'm going to cover it with some plastic wrap. Okay. I've covered them, and they're now going in a warm spot to rise for another hour. I have preheated my oven to 200 degrees Celsius, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and my buns have rested for an hour, or it has been proofing for an hour. So I'm going to remove the plastic wrap, and I'm going to make an egg wash. 1 egg and a teaspoon of milk. I'm going to very carefully beat that together. I'm now going to lightly brush each of the buns with the egg wash. Not too much. They look great. They've definitely doubled in size, I would say. I'm going to put these in the oven. They're going to bake for 14 to 15 minutes until they're a nice golden brown. It's been 14 minutes, and we're going to check the internal temperature, which should be about 204 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside. Perfect. So now I'm going to take them out of the oven and let them cool on a rack. So after I took the krentenbollen out of the oven, I put them on a rack to cool. Look at the nice sheen from the egg wash. Nice golden brown color. First thing we do, smell it. You can smell a little bit of the lemon zest, just ever so slightly the cinnamon, but really the lemon, the yeasty bread, and the currants is the thing that you smell first. So there's many different ways you can eat this. You can eat it plain, just like this. Au naturel is what we would say in the Netherlands. Or you can do it, slice it open with some butter, which is what I prefer. My mom actually put some butter and some slices of Gouda kaas, or Gouda cheese, on there. Let's cut it open. Let's take a look at what it looks like on the inside. The crumb is nice and tight, no big air bubbles in there. Let me see if I can hold it up a little bit. Good amount of krenten in there. See if it smells any different. I can smell the cinnamon more once you cut it open. Let's add a little bit of butter. Now my dad would add sugar to this, but I don't. So, Eet Smakelijk. The dough is nice and soft. Every bite you get like this little bit of the chewiness from the currants that have a good amount of acidity, but not too much. And there's just on the back of tasting it, you can tell the warmth of the cinnamon and that lemon zest. It is so good. It doesn't need any sugar. The bread is sweet enough, and I am just transported back in time, especially since they're still just a little bit warm. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you have any questions or memories about krentenbollen, you can post them in the comments below. I will post the written recipe on my website, toineskitchen.com, in both metric and imperial measurements, and you can follow me on social media as well. If you make krentenbollen, I would love it if you can take a photo of it and post it on Instagram with the hashtag ToinesKitchen. I will share it in my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.